Hey everybody, this is Michael from Systems of Human Performance. Today I'm doing another read-along of my most recent article. I'm going to jump right into it, but before I do, a little prologue, which is just to say if you enjoy this, please like and leave a comment and subscribe to Systems of Human Performance. Please share this with at least one friend that you will think will enjoy it. And if you'd like to support me financially, please consider becoming a paying subscriber. With that out of the way, let's jump into this article. What is systems-based management? What systems-based management gets right where traditional management goes wrong? What's the best piece of management advice you've ever gotten? Was it directed towards performance, strategy, people? I bet it was. These are typical domains of what I call traditional management. Their focus is built on a status quo understanding of business, an understanding that, whether you've realized it or not, has gone the way of the dinosaur. If you've read any management book, you'll even feel the antiquity flowing through it. It just doesn't resonate with how organizations operate today. Underlying all of this is a fatal assumption that no longer holds true. Perhaps it never held true. The entire apparatus of traditional management assumes that our outcomes are mostly a function of individual character, talent, effort, grit, hustle, individualized strategy, and decision-making. If the results are good, the person is good. If the results are bad, the person needs to be better or needs to go. This is how most people view business. It is also mostly wrong, and it is expensive to believe. Reminder to please subscribe. There is a different way to think about running a business, one that treats the system a person works in inside as the primary variable and the person as secondary. I call this systems-based management, and I contend that this is a better way to run organizations. It brings management closer to reality. Reality of organizations, reality of knowledge and how knowledge is created, and reality of effort. Once you start seeing organizations through this lens, you cannot unsee it. People already want to do good work. This is one of the key axioms, one of the key principles of systems-based management theory. If we don't believe this, the rest is going to fall through. But I think there's a reason to believe this. Traditional management operates on the assumption that people need to be pushed. They need quotas, incentive trips, fear of being fired, leaderboards, and public recognition to bother trying hard. They need performance goals and bonuses to achieve those goals. Strip away the carrots and the sticks, the thinking goes, and performance collapses. This assumption is backwards. Watch anyone in the first month at a new job. They show up early, they ask questions, they want to be good at this. Motivation is not something that management manufactures from nothing. It's something that already exists in almost everyone and gets ground down over time by the system. So where does this motivation go? What kills it? The answer nearly always is the system itself. People experience low morale when they are asked to hit targets that the process cannot actually support. By way of example, a customer service rep is told to keep average call time under 4 minutes, while also being told to fully resolve every issue, score well on satisfaction surveys, and oh, by the way, try to cross-sell other products. Those demands are in direct conflict with one another, and no amount of individual effort resolves the conflict because the conflict was built into the workflow by someone who doesn't understand the system dynamics. And this very same person will hide behind blaming individual effort or ability as the reason for missing these goals. The rep learns fast that the goals are fictional and that surviving the job means gaming whichever metric is measured that quarter. What this short vignette reveals is not a motivation problem, but is a systematic dysfunction, an illness that will never be set right so long as we look at strategy or performance or people. This is why platitudes and exhortation fail as a management tool. Posters that say safety first, speeches about giving 110%, Slack messages urging people to own the outcome, all of it lands on people who are already trying and already own the outcome, or have actively chosen to disengage from owning the outcome because of the dynamics they feel powerless to conquer. Employees are not missing inspiration. What they are missing is a system that lets their effort translate into results. The single highest leverage thing that a manager can do for morale is not a pep talk. It is walking the floor or the code base or the call transcripts and removing the things that make good people fail despite good effort. Businesses run on systems, not on heroes. Here's a convenient heuristic for testing the health of an organization. Ask whether the survival of the organization depends on the occasional brilliant individual to produce good outcomes, or does it produce good outcomes reliably regardless of who is at the helm? Think about healthcare compared to hospitals. One has built layered systems for catching errors, checklists before surgery, a second set of eyes verifying medication dosages, standardized handoff protocols between shifts, root cause reviews when something goes wrong that change the process rather than just the person involved. The other hospital has no such infrastructure, but it employs 3 legendary surgeons whose personal skill and vigilance keep the error rate acceptable. Which hospital would you actually want to be treated at? Are you going to wait for the legendary surgeons? Do you have that luxury? Obviously, this is something that really does happen. Many hospitals seek out top-rated talent rather than trying to build systems which all levels of talent can flourish. And this is one of the main points of systems-based philosophy, systems-based management, is that it's not sustainable to constantly seek out top-rated talent and compensate them. It's far better for the organization and more sustainable, and actually better for the customer, as this example shows, to build systems where all levels of skill are going to be bolstered up and support the delivery of service in this case. The system-driven hospital wins every time. This comes as no surprise. The hospital, which has architected layers of checks and fail-safes, does not depend on any single person clearing a superhuman bar every single day. Heroics are not a strategy. Heroics indicate an uncontrolled organization. Heroics are a desperate last resort that you fall back on when you have failed to control outcomes systemically. Heroics are a stopgap for catastrophe. You can find this pattern everywhere once you look for it. Sales incentives are baked into the system, but there is no system at all outside of one-off promotions. Many sales teams struggle with this, to produce sustainable revenue without such efforts. Similarly, Starbucks has painted themselves into a corner through discounts. They have for too long relied on discount codes and happy hour pricing to bring in growth and drive people in the afternoons. And what they've done is they've foregone building true customer desire and loyalty. Their marketing system is deeply broken. I might say compare this to a product like Crest toothpaste, which is never on discount, is never trying anything terribly new, but has built incredible brand loyalty. In every case is the same. If removing one exceptional person or causing one temporary incentive would sink performance, you do not have a system. You have a person or a gimmick standing in for one, and the actual job of building the system has not yet been done. The issue is that we are infatuated with heroics. Search for business quotes and you'll find several talking about hiring top talent or leveraging brilliant people or motivating people to go above and beyond. Consider 2 which you've probably heard before. The first one by Steve Jobs. It doesn't make any sense to hire people and tell them what to do. We hire smart people so they tell us what to do. And Lee Iacocca. Start with good people. Lay out the rules, communicate with your employees, motivate them and reward them. That morale. If you do all these things effectively, you can't miss. Systems-based management would counter these ideas by saying something like, why are you spending all your time trying to find the top talent, competing with God knows how many other firms inside and outside of your industry? Build a system that anybody can thrive in. Build a system that develops people throughout their careers. Build a system where people learn to build these systems, and you'll never have to worry about the talent pipeline again. A short digression. Depending on the industry, you might think it's unwise to forego seeking out the best talent. Right now, the tech industry can attract top talent with lavish offices, espresso machines, and salaries that are above market. We know this to be true. That's why tech is sexy. That's why people want to get into tech. But this will not always be so. A century ago, Henry Ford also attracted workers with above-market salaries. He even built homes for his workers. I live about 40 minutes outside of Dearborn, and you can go and look at these beautiful neighborhoods that Henry Ford built for his workers. They're better than any neighborhoods they're building today. But as industries age and competitive forces take hold, that advantage is eroded. Surely we wouldn't expect Ford Motor Company to offer any salary higher than what the market would support. This is an inevitability for any industry and market. Better to build up an immunity to the illness before you get it. Some are convinced, such as in the tech industry, they won't even contract the bug, and they'd be wrong. Management's job is to improve the system. If people are already trying and outcomes are mostly a function of the system they work inside, then the job description for management changes completely. The manager is not a referee handing out grades on individual performance. The manager is an engineer, an architect, a facilitator of the development and design of the organizational system. That job takes many forms. Sometimes it means stabilizing a process that swings wildly in quality depending on the day, so that output becomes predictable before anyone tries to improve it. After all, you can't meaningfully improve something you cannot yet predict. Sometimes it means streamlining workflows through the reduction of approvals and handoffs and legacy check-ins. Sometimes it means finding a new market that the current system is actually well suited to serve, rather than forcing the existing team to hit a number in a market where the product has no real advantage. Sometimes, uncomfortably, it means reducing headcount, not as punishment, but because the system genuinely does not require that much labor to run once its inefficiencies are removed. And pretending otherwise wastes everyone's time. Sometimes it is as unglamorous as renegotiating contracts, or direct material costs, or noticing that a competitor or a completely unrelated industry has found a better practice that can be adapted and installed. None of these things are about pushing individuals harder. All of them are about changing the conditions individuals operate under, changing the competitive and organizational environment. This is not necessarily a harder job than traditional management, but it requires the acquisition of new management paradigms and tools and the forfeiture of cherished management tools of yesteryear. One key difference that I will admit is harder is what to do about causality and performance. It is much simpler to sit in a review meeting and tell someone their numbers are down than it is to trace why those numbers are down through 6 steps of a broken process and then go redesign those steps, implement the design, record the test performance, and make changes until it's just right. Traditional management is, in a real sense, a way of avoiding the hard work of systems improvement by outsourcing the blame to whoever is closest to the output. Systems-based management refuses that shortcut. It insists that if the result is bad, the first question is what about the system produced the result, and only after the system has been genuinely examined does the question of individual performance ever become relevant. Another difference that this reframing brings to light is how a manager measures their contribution. Traditional management looks at past performance as an indicator of future performance. Did my team hit the number this quarter? A systems-based manager asks, is the system that produces our numbers more capable this quarter than it was last quarter? How many improvements did we make? How much money was saved by our improvements? What capabilities have we acquired that we did not possess last quarter? How are we better positioned to meet the needs of our customers next quarter because of our efforts this quarter? Those are different questions, and they produce different behavior. And suffice it to say, this is a much more fulfilling and satisfying way to conduct business. At least I think so. Reality is too complex to predict, so experiment. Another difference, traditional management leans heavily on predictive forecasting and descriptive analysis. Prediction works by building a model, extrapolating from historic data, setting a target derived from that extrapolation, and then managing people against the gap between actual and forecast. This is fraught with issues. Prediction genuinely doesn't work because the environments most real businesses actually operate in, which are complex, interconnected, and full of variables that do not show up in last year's spreadsheet. And many organizations then spend inordinate amounts of time trying to figure out why their predictions went off or how to improve them for the future. It's truly astounding. Descriptive analysis is where we describe who our customers are, or where our problems lie, or how long it takes us to do a task, say deliver a customer a product. So it's very descriptive of the current state of what we're actually doing. But this too is fraught with baggage because it rarely leads to definitive actions which should be taken. Traditional managers love this sort of analysis because they feel like they understand their current business better. They have something, perhaps even something elegant to say about their business, but it's wholly ineffectual in prescribing what to do next. So we see that the current paradigms of traditional management, which incorporate and rely on data, often fail in the area we value most: what to do next. Efforts to produce a better forecast will still have us chasing our tails trying to understand causes of errors. More descriptives may reveal some helpful insights, but those will quickly be addressed and we'll be left with more data, more taxonomies of problems, but the same confidence of what to do next, which is not much. If we understand systems, we will appreciate their complexity and respect our own inability to sift out the underlying dynamics of the system through data alone. Luckily, systems-based thinking, systems-based management, comes equipped with a new tool to handle this failure of traditional approaches: experimentation. Through experimentation, we can form a hypothesis, run a small test, usually with low resolution as a proof of concept, observe what actually happened, and let the result tell you something about the dynamics of the system. The true benefit of experimentation is not so much that you will learn what to do next, but you will develop very quickly large swaths of knowledge about your own organization, your customers, your industries, and the forces behind it. This tome of knowledge becomes a catalog of empirical facts which systems thinkers can use to identify dynamics and suggest steps towards improvement, which of course those steps can be tested as well. Experimentation begets a self-knowledge that becomes a competitive advantage that nobody can mimic, replicate, or take away. Data still matters enormously in this view, but its role changes. Data does not get to dictate the plan like it does through prognosis and forecasting. Instead, data gets to suggest which experiments are worth running and to tell you after the fact whether an experiment worked. Dashboards take on new life not as a recorder of past events, but as a pointer towards a hypothesis worth testing. This focus on experimentation is also why systems-based management tends to distrust rigid annual plans and 5-year roadmaps built entirely from projections. Not because planning is worthless, but because a plan is a hypothesis dressed up as a certainty, and organizations that treat their plan as certain stop noticing when reality disagrees with it. The better posture is a portfolio of small, fast experiments running continuously, each one cheap enough to fail without damage and informative enough to actually update your understanding of the system. Over time, and I would say quickly actually, this produces something a static forecast never can: an organization that gets smarter about its own reality month over month, instead of one that gets more confident in an increasingly outdated model. Final thoughts. Systems-based management is not an argument against people. It might sound like it is, but it's not. Individuals matter, they're still relevant, they exist within a system. Traditional management looks at the person before it looks at the system, assumes motivation has to be manufactured rather than protected, attributes blame personally, tolerates dependence on heroics as long as the numbers come in, and manages against forecasts, known to be fraught with errors. Systems-based management inverts every one of those defaults. It assumes people already want to succeed and asks what in the system is stopping them. It seeks to understand how the process has failed the person. It treats dependence on any single exceptional performance as a design flaw to be fixed rather than a strength to be celebrated. It defines the manager's job as continuously improving the mechanism that produced results, not scoring the humans caught inside of it. And it treats the complexity of the real world honestly by testing it constantly. The businesses that actually last are not the ones with the most inspiring leaders or the most talented individual performers scattered across the org chart. They are the ones that have built systems capable of producing good outcomes, no matter who happens to be having a bad week. That is a less romantic story than the hero narrative traditional management prefers to tell. It is also the true one, and it is the only version of the story that lasts. That's the end of the article. It was free. So please, as I've asked before, subscribe, leave a comment, share this publication with at least one of your friends. And if you prefer to support me financially, please become a paying subscriber. I'm enjoying doing these read-alongs. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your interest in systems of human performance.